Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Still doing this very last daydream. And then, I guess we'll be seeing if I have time to do my final thoughts on his Trails into Reverie. I have, of course, BogMod. Accept. One of its words. The hulking bear of a veteran bracer, Zin Vathic. No disappointment. There it is, bottom up at the side, he stood before me. Not again. Go resign himself to the inevitable one of these days. This man was capable, he was kind. The first days in the guild. I didn't wish to be a source of vexation for him, which alone is not enough. I'll leave any rank, so I can accept your recommendation. Based on the strength and achievements. With A rank being the highest on paper, at least. Organization, such ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months. Come on. Better have my name among the greats of the guild? Absolutely not. I say when it comes to the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. Pressure by head was persuade me. I folded my arms. Yes, man. I wish I believe you are. There is. Stand out and more than I already do. You offered to be a model, to star in films. It's been frankly exhausting for them to give up. If I were to accept a promotion, I'll be neck deep in the same mess all over again. There's the beauty and bronze department. Try to lay low as a gloss comes. Fans are getting. Maybe you should consider the silver screen after all. Who knows? You might walk away with an award from the film festival. Ah, yes, the film festival. It's not funny, I understand being the public eye to some extent is the devil. I've accepted it, but I'm an embracer, not an entertainer. Funny though, you find a way to let off some scene, you're gonna break when you gotta need to put you together the most. Was the workaholics like you roughly, you think? Didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied. I was quick to deny there was a nugget of truth to what he said. Getting off topic. There's a difference for you to become an A-rank bracer. I can't see the logic behind it. Well, you see. No kind of investments. No conflict follows. That's just how it is. There's a switch between mega corporations and start increasing Jaeger activity. In addition to the known growth of private military companies, increased tensions between mafias. So Le Mans wants to set security while promoting our rising star, you. It's good PR for the guild and deterrent to potential threats to the thing of setting on a line. If you asked me to play my part, then surely they asked you to play your part already. For S-rank, haven't you? I was awkwardly upon my statement. I just think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Wright. I mean, no offense to you, Zin, but I kind of agree. You're a solid A rank. Not going to contest that. But I wouldn't put you at Cassius right now. You know, like me as a picture advertiser for the guild? Built to be one, yes. Can't force you to take a recommendation. I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just let me know if you change your mind, okay? I preferred things. It was better to say like this. Or something more. I remember when that was. Sometime during my childhood habit, I'm sure. Small the world truly was. So I prayed and longed to become someone I was not. But I became that someone. And you're unforgettable. There, another priceless treasure I had gained. I thought I got it closer to who I wanted to be. It was just wishful thinking. Held was empty. And I was still a nobody. My future stands still. I remained following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. I was becoming something more. Of becoming someone. I just need to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. She was a shark! With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. Those human mesh across Crossville City's branches receptions for the few times I visited for work. Today, I sat down on the counter seat farthest from the door as he approached. The usual, sweetheart. And whenever I did, I was always with coffee and a light snack. It's not a coffee and snacks kind of day. With alcohol, even beer will do. Turn place an elegant glass in front of me. More you than a beer. Which colors? A clear blue like that of a priceless sapphire, and a calming jade. So I described my heart was trying to soothe in his own way. Nothing more about what I asked? So informant. He's extremely well connected to the guild, the press, and the criminal underworld. I might even dig was any promising leads. So I think you've got your eyes on the right district. Time before they get smoked out. Direction, but it seemed that it was going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things work out. Just pace yourself. Keep it at a little bit at a time. It's a strong one, so drink it all at once. Drugs in the market. Highly addictive, dangerous drugs. Not like those non-dangerous, non-addictive drugs that that people tend to illegally sell on the market. Drugs was, of course, far from ideal elimination of them, but none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order toward chaos after its supreme. Care of the curative rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market. Two missing children below the age of 10, a boy and his younger sister. Family on good terms with one another. No demands. You'll hesitate to find them. See a public site for illicit drug trade. And next, we're being captured by criminal parties involved with the result. The greater the danger the lives we're in. Do anything right away. But we're sure to leave a trace evidence behind. At a time before they resort to that or trafficking abroad to be rid of them. Okay. Said the odds of the children being returned on how we're dropping to zero. Perspective on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this has to do with the criminal underworld at all. We could force to arrest any suspicious people on sight and make them talk should you wish it. Guild's code and its founding principles. This is another question. Adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes. The people we sort of protect in danger. It's the ultimate impasse. John found his blue-tinged, unkempt hair. One another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he had left it. A confession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. There was many scripts in it, so I believed. I left with a warning, walked back in much the same. Our unit must be awkward based on where we parted. Return after all that waiting, all that searching, dive into some questionable enterprise was so different from my own. It's almost too much to bear. Which was, why didn't he come to see me? Oh, she's all romantic. Yeah, word I was about him. How worried I am about him. Reputation building. I took a large gulp of my cocktail. The alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. Transhuman of the past. Replacing itself with a different emotion altogether. Why did you leave? It made me feel downright pitiful once they were said. We're seen in this state. What do I see? Just what I'd like to say. My response to faint comments as best I could. More than a few. Right, of course, you would see right through me. It was no coincidence. No childhood friend. Why not just go and see him? I already have his address by now, surely. So, thousands of time has passed. I mumbled my response meekly. Thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. To rush things with your lines of work, I'm sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. Expect that response. You make it sound so romantic. As you've forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Toast, I'll make your next one non-alcoholic. I can have my liquor just fine, thank you very much. And he and I had become estranged, but both our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. bracer again. Ah, the CID! That's the intelligence division for Calvard. Spoken to protect civilians, and while the CID focused solely on the needs of the president in office. That's ripe for corruption. That is deeply ripe for corruption. Neither enemies nor allies, they simply had very different goals where the work was concerned. Demand a new hero, that much is clear. Graphically changed the subject like that was likely brought him to find me in the first place. To regard those missing kids. Proceed as you like, according to the police. Just cause to act, and seeing the victim of the CID, there's no reason to doubt its veracity. Cyrus. My foot was taking me. You know, I found myself before a new path that could lead to someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. To me losing someone again. What if I ended up in more pain? I used to stay idle. Being at my core, I knew it well. Never shows anything but. So I rebelled against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. To face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? Left. The center of gravity unleashed a flurry of slash against my first foe. Second. Two lurking mobsters fell to the ground. The police the excuse we need to take more direct stance against our targets. Classification on our own. Eyes in and several other braces. Agreed it would be best for us to attack several locations in unison. Before she's from the paper. I was forward swinging my sword twice as I passed them. They fell before they could even raise their weapons. The word of my rival had already been spread. There she is! She's that bracer that's been going around about. What am I if the immovable's here too? What if the immovable's here? That's Zin. It's one woman. We can take care of her. Down there. This number was risky. Which the other brace show, but I also had to consider. What if my way afforded the Mafia the time to wield the children's hostages? The chance of that happening was worth the cost. I need to push on and settle this now. Or they seize combat veterans. It's a nuclear advantage to implement complex formations. Economy. What's this thing? The amateurs. How using martial arts? Oh, interesting. Former Mafia girl. Or possibly contrasting against what Hayu gets to bring to bear. Potential against me? Ensured the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up with a close-range fight in a single spot. Big or friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down! 1, 2. Cigarettes. Throwing them into complete disarray as more collapse to the ground. 3 down, 4. Back away through to kind of the ones that farthest back. Able to reach them. They were spread so carelessly. Sword sealed. Their powers that closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. Closing the world counter. Some attack out of adrenaline-induced desperation. They fell to a long set trap and actually attacked themselves. That's the last one standing. There were small groups I encountered on my way through the building, but I was able to disable them with a little effort. Later. Single middle-aged fellow. Just in fear upon the very sight of me. Why here? Where are my men? Kissing the floors. Coming precisely that he balked in the sleep. That's impossible. My balls off to build this group off the ground up. Seeing a girl like you tore it all down like that? Yeah, closer. As I thrust my sword till it sat just between his eyes, he let it squeal. Oh, girl, I'm a bracer. No way, I didn't kill him. Careful, restrained. See them soon. In prison! He will answer them. One girl disappeared last month. Where are they? What did you do to them? In a room farther inside. They're alive. This group. You all seem too far to be charged with this here city. Thanks. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you? Tell me, is it A? I can't. Cheers, things are inside the room. Scrunching, squelching, splattering. But they did, they just feared just as soon as they sound themselves. There's vital imagination. Mutilate piles of flesh and bone. I just wonder too, every single one of them, without exception, to be reduced to bloodied mounds. Ooh. As others ordered from their abdomens. And those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter. Or the ones with their hearts pulled and squeezed. Spread. They're covered in sticky, slimy red. They've done something like this! No. So I just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back to the room I was just in. Putting the air. Center room. As though some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monstrous sword pieced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripping from his unspeaking. Time to scream before his life was taken. Who are you? I could see the faint contours of another distorting the space around him. Some sort of act of camouflage. And his voice projected true arrogance. So he's above all others, it's a matter of course. There's no need to be spoiling for fight. I'm simply here to take out the trash if they're careless enough to leave that trail for the CID to follow. There's such gruesome murders in those terms. There's no group above them. Very good. People you work with like this. People, have you your ears? This is nothing about taking out a person, only trash. That's the garbage piling up the hallway. They've always been so, even before they stopped breathing. He might be a baddie. You monster! Unavoidable strike. Just tell me his strengths are well a league above mine. Hit my blow with the most perfect instant. The force of my attack was so little that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. What's the nature of this cruciform sword? An unholy fusion of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within this very blade. No common weapon. But at the same time, my instincts were screaming at me that I could not allow to believe. For sight. But the attack was just as little effort. Each one faster than the last. I darted in a new direction, tagging from behind. Let's make it the count for his distortion. Got him. His cruciform blade caught a great arc through the air and a force spring slash. Flying backwards. The first time to have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out some massive weight. It was night and day. Communicated the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the true nature of all things. Impressive. You put up more of a fight than the rumors had led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? Interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? It's at the heart of all we know. Domination, servitude, order, harmony, production. All of it exists because of fear. Fear in its purest form, much like the refuge's tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. I knew it. You meant every word. Truly, you are a monster. If you saw me, you'll understand what I mean in due time. So in my house cleaning efforts, I will let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Brisa. Wait. I grew afraid he was gone. Ah, teleportation. With frustration that I let him leave. So afraid that he might go on to do because I couldn't stop him. I lost the strength to even stand. Always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day he left me. The same powerless girl I was back then. You saved kids. Like, if you hadn't showed up, you would have 100% saved the kids without killing anyone. Stop being so mean to yourself. Looks like she's different from the other girl from Mean's story. There's Sister Bear crashed against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. So come here to help you. The boy shook his head vigorously. Fears at the heart of all we know. We're not very much in fear's clutches. He's ready to reject me. Though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's all right. I smiled my most comforting smile. After that, I grasped the blade of the knife. I was behind me, grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust towards me. The sister. She had tipped around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother, tried to stab me from behind. Face started to see. It's right about fear controls everything we do. There was something terrifying if it made you resort to this. The knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. It's the girl I meant no harm. Get more than giving into that fear. We can fight it with courage. We can fight it. I'm doing that just now. Maybe in grip of fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me of the dangers sister posed. If it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and keep her from committing an irreversible, murderable act. That's what he was trying to do. I'm a bracer. I'll keep you safe. You're a bracer? Emotion. That's right, I'm here to help you. Something blade, I think. That's right, that is a little embarrassing. I'm here to keep you out of the harm's way. Okay, I promise. Unless her eyes were slightly, and before long, her eyes were filled with tears. Soon, she began to sniffle. Small ones, in there. But pronounced, turning into uncontrollable sobs. She had finally been liberated from her fear. My current path. So I had to choose this path with pride in my heart. To turn back on it now. But I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so. The day of the Edith branch of Calvard's Guild. My mafia was trying to copy what that other organization managed to pull off. Oh, child assassins. Transaction. With the intent of turning them into professional killers. See, he found them, where they worked for, purged them. Hell of a way to go. If I had been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all. Just keep saying safe, not criminals. Say they deserved it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. Turn that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat your life. Go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside me. I realized that something needed to be changed. Take some kind of step forward. In some dramatic fashion. I just need to pick myself back up again. Oh, okay. Oh, I think I recognize her. She's from the new game. My childhood friend said to me. I had what it took to be a hero. If it could even be just a brief one. Give people the hope and banish the darkness ahead. There's reason enough to keep going. You know what? Actually, I just realized something. People died! People actually died. This is already a divergence from the last 5 games. Face me his classic broad grin, even broader than usual. I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process how much they wanted this. At the same age as the Empire's purple lightning. There's an Elaine Claire, Beauty's Blade. Neat. Is there more? Nope. Alright. Then I'm going to take this moment to talk about my final thoughts. Oh, we have this nice little music. So first of all, since we had 3 different groups, I thought I'd initially start off with my thoughts on each group. First, my thoughts on Breen. And, I feel like we did his story at least twice already. His whole... Like, it seemed like there was this whole growth thing he was trying to aim for, about finally accepting things, and I feel like, yeah, we did this twice. At least. So that just didn't land so right for me. Roboreen wasn't a particularly engaging villain either. 99% of the interaction we seem to have with him was that final speech at the end. And then they're like, oh, no, you don't understand. It totally is Reen. The scene kind of undid the whole, nah, it's not Reen. At least it's not Reen to the same extent as like, well, what if, just imagine someone you know. Now imagine they were that person, but completely evil. How much do you say, oh yeah, they're the same person? No, they're not. They're significantly different. So it was with him. Lloyd. So Lloyd ends up in a weird place as a cop. For me. So obviously he's supposed to be this good guy cop. Truth, justice, doing the right thing. All that sort of, all that sort of stuff, right? Typical protagonist style cop. But we also kind of know he's okay with following the government line on propaganda, suppressing the truth, permitting lies about an innocent person to be spread, with how things ended up going with Rufus and Elysium. It's a weird contrast for him. As much as they were all like, no, we got to do the right thing, yada yada, and it doesn't sit right for me. The idea that they'd lost their way. Game didn't have enough time to express the concept properly. It needed more time to cook, to demonstrate, to show itself, rather than a bad guy going, oh, you've lost your way. And I feel like they also had a missed opportunity to explore the idea that the SSS was part of the anomaly. Kia had changed time to make them live. They were a living defiance of causality. But it never seemed to get examined much, and kind of that whole meddling with causality and the future seems only bad when the bad guys are doing it. Yeah. So, also, his interactions with people like Arios and Ian Grimm. I'll talk more about that a little later. Rufus. Rufus. So Rufus kind of gets his redemption, quote-unquote, arc here. But compared to what others seem to get away with, and what his own so-called crimes were, it's more drama for the sake of being dramatic. Whatever the games try to insist about his motivations, he was ultimately still an honorable, kind, helpful, and good person through most of Cold Steel. Whatever his motivations, he wasn't trying to plunge the world into darkness or anything horrible like that. He was doing his part, working with Osborn to save the world. No doubt thanks to him, a lot of the damage of the Civil War and the rest was minimized. Similarly, some of this kind of opinion about things kind of attached itself to the Ironbloods as well, who are beating themselves because while their work did help save millions upon millions of innocent lives, the fact that they couldn't do it without half a day's fighting and a few thousand soldiers dying, and they view that as now they are truly the greatest scum of the earth, worse than any villain in all of history. Instead of understanding that you're big damn heroes. That's kind of my view on all three chapters. That's just to kind of talk broadly speaking. This game kind of came across a lot like Sky the Third. Right? We had our little daydream stories. We had little side mini games. It was a collection of people thrown together in a weird pocket dimension. However, it fails to some degree because Sky the Third much better had that room to deepen the setting and the characters and all that sort of stuff. We've got a few interesting moments, but to the same degree that the various events in the third help deepen our understanding of the setting and the characters, this game's daydream stuff not nearly as good. Yeah, like, well, I really liked, say, like, Phantom Thief B's wedding bit. It didn't add a lot. Not like, say, getting Ren's backstory was. Or, I mean, like, take, our bit with Osborn. Kind of neat reading got his little dream, closure. But we kind of already understood that's how Osborn was. It was more just being flat out, alright. All that stuff we implied and you seemed to kind of get and we hoped we was told through our storytelling. Now we're going to just flat out push it in your face as fact. And it's like, okay. Similarly, our final bosses, not really a lot of connection in the same way that the other games did. When I think of Wiseman, Dieter Maribel, even Joachim Gunther, Osborn, there was just so much more presence for those as antagonists. Whereas the villains in this is kind of a bit space flea from nowhere, as it were. Now, that's a fine enough trope. And it certainly works depending on the game. Trails to do with the Legend of Heroes series is not usually what I would associate with it. Similarly, the story itself kind of felt like it was a bit all over the place here. For example, the idea of these all-knowing, super predictive AI that can make virtually indistinguishable duplicates that act and talk and do all that like the reals would in every way, shape, or form. It has prophecy-level predictive power. It's just the story never quite lives up to that. At least, not without creating some explanations in my head. For example, consider the Nord Highlands, right? Did Elysium really want to kill the Nomads? It had a stealthed cannon in place the whole time. It could have fired that thing at any point. The Zeroth Knight showing up, what did it do? It knocked out the two ships, and while everyone was completely helpless, wandered off. Despite, everything being at its mercy, it's just like, nah, now that I've done that, I'm gonna go. What are we supposed to kind of understand and interpret from this? Is this how Ishmelga Reen, the true fusion of Ishmelga and Reen, is supposed to act? How much were they ever willing to truly kill in the first place? Like, remember, it's only after we ultimately defeat Robo-Reen that he's like, you know what? Screw that. I'm gonna turn on the system to just kill all of humanity. Nah ha ha ha. And did Elysium ever honestly think that humanity was going to bow before it with its, like... It's just... They probably could have just made it as an AI that came to some wacky conclusions about things, and it would have worked okay. My take ultimately with Elysium, and I think this is the best, my personal and preferred headcanon, is Elysium never intended to win. Ishmelga Reen and all that other stuff and everything it did was an elaborate way to self-terminate. Existing as it did, there's no way it could just destroy itself. But it could set up a weird series of dominoes to make humanity do the deed. Which is why it did things like take out completely empty fortresses, not try to destroy any military that opposed it, never hurt a civilian, everything ignored, that sort of stuff. What else do I have for my notes? Here we are. So another aspect of the games was... The games definitely wanted to try to have it both ways. In the evil of humanity, but also mind control. We saw at various points the various soldiers of Erebonia expressing legitimate grievances. We know, as players, that these soldiers were lied to, manipulated by their government, by a magical evil that twisted their souls and minds and made them act and feel in ways that they have no way to properly process. Hell, those soldats, the last generation of soldats we saw in Cold Steel 4, were basically powered by evil and drove you to evil. And then at the end of the war, for all their sacrifices and what they were manipulated into, they were effectively betrayed by their government, forced to endure a humiliating defeat to the reparations, their dismantling of the military, and never understanding what they sacrificed and what they achieved for it. So while all that is like good, legitimate, interesting story elements, it was very quickly forgotten, and it was also further ruined by mind control. The mind control here just undercuts their legitimate grievances and issues. And it doesn't work out. It makes it a little easier to just be like, well, no, we've defeated them now. Now they'll snap out of it because they were under mind control. They also want to play up the mind control stuff like it's human weakness and to blame people for being mind controlled. But like, if I get a gun or a sword or a bow and I stab someone through the gut and as they're bleeding, I'm like, man, if you think about it, this is your fault for being so weak. No, it's my fault. I stabbed the guy. I don't get to go in there blame the victim of being murdered by my hand, of being weak. That is That's what insane villains do. They're like, when insane villains are like, well, if the village didn't want to be slaughtered by me, maybe they shouldn't have been so weak. We understand that viewpoint to be wrong and evil and insane. But they kind of want to push that as like, no, it's humanity. Humanity are the bad guys here. But they've had a problem with that since Cold Steel 3. To which I want to reference how Osborne points out, all the blood and bad stuff in our history. You know why? But the nature of Erebonians doesn't explain it. Well, it's an evil curse. But then they're like, but actually, if that were just how humanity was, we wouldn't need the curse. It's just. And there was some really interesting, a few interesting moments where the game brought up the damage done to people by the curse. The guy in the hospital getting therapy. A guy in Calvard or in Crossbell thinking about how he felt and acted during the war. And of course, we also get to go. We remember back from the Cold Steel games, there was a young child who fled Heimdall to live with her grandmother because of how her parents had become. These sorts of things don't get explored. The public never fights to find out the truth, and there's no introspection by the protagonists about hiding this fact from everybody. Despite getting these chances to observe the harm their silence is doing to people. On the final main points I want to bring in, where I really want to touch on, is how different I feel this game hits depending on where you start in the series. Like, did you play the Crossbell games? If you played the Crossbell games, your view about Dieter and Arios are going to be quite different. For example, if you didn't play the Crossbell games, you would never properly appreciate the fact that Arios helped to murder Lloyd's brother and was part of a conspiracy that abused Kia and intentionally used a false flag operation to murder his fellow citizens of Crossbell so that Dieter could swing public opinion in favor of his independence movement and draw public support. Not only that, but Arios did all of this also so that his daughter would get helped and other people in theory wouldn't have to go through that sort of thing again. And at the end of all this, he gets everything he wanted. He's free. He's back to a job that he enjoys. His daughter is healthy, recovered from her blindness, and everyone views him as a hero. As you didn't play Crossbell, and you just played the Cold Steel games, you lose so much context about him. Another example. Did you skip the Trails in the Sky games? Missing out on that is going to change your view on Ren. Especially since in Crossbell, Ouroboros doesn't nearly do the same degree of bad stuff that ultimately Dieter and Maribel are behind. So the idea that if you started with Crossbell, how you view Ren and her family situation, and the stuff that involving her in the Cold Steel games, it's going to be a very different take on things. You're not going to appreciate what she was in her villainy. And she'll just kind of be a bit more, oh, poor little wayward child. You also won't understand, perhaps, the weirdness in the Estelle deciding, nope, this kid I've known for 2 weeks, stalking her across the country, and adopting her. Don't care that she has a family that's alive and misses her and thinks she's dead. We're adopting this kid behind their back. Screw them. Don't care what they think. Don't care what she thinks. She's getting adopted. It's really weird. I think ultimately part of this is a mix of a couple elements. One is that the games have, I mean, these are each 100-hour games. This is the 10th. There's a lot of details to keep straight, and I am sympathetic to the cause, to that thing. However, I think the bigger, more serious element here is that there is a storytelling, obviously, they're games, there's a storytelling intent. But I think that they've let the end result they have override the prior stuff they've established. I think, no, we want this bit with Arios to be fine and all that. Well, we'll just forget about what he did then. Problem solved. We want Ren to be with the Brights. And we want them and Dad to get along well. Even though the circumstances behind her adoption by his teenage kids kind of weird. So we'll solve that. There's a lot of good organic storytelling in this. In these games. But there are definitely parts where they kind of lose their way. Another good example of this, I think, is Lloyd has more anger towards Rufus. A man, we should point out, in setting, the game he acknowledges was great as a lead when he was the guy in charge of Crossbell. Never hurt anyone directly, never physically hurt or harmed anyone in Crossbell or or was abusive or cruel in his management of the city-state as the former governor. Lloyd has more anger towards him than he does towards Arios and Ian, people who did actively hurt people in his home, who were the two who actively murdered his own brother. He is more angry towards Rufus than he is towards those two, which is kind of that thing. They want this. They have this story they want to push, and they've, in some degree, failed to do the setup properly, or explore perhaps the. If Lloyd feels like this about Rufus, what would he feel like towards these other guys? And then my final thought is that this is definitely a product of the Cold Steel era of the games. By which I mean how it tries to ramp up the stakes, but then undermines, just really goes all in on being like, I know I just raised the stakes and things are dire, but I want you to know no one's getting hurt and no one is harmed and everything's going to be fine. I'm sorry. I'm to any of you who may think it was peak storytelling, and if you do, let me know in the comments below. But Elysium wiping out the naval fortress, and then the exact next scene is them going, oh, there was maintenance being done. Not a single person was inside and no one was hurt. That was just dumb. That was horrible. That was just Like, the only way that possibly makes any sense is the idea that, no, Elysium really, really, really doesn't want to hurt anyone. And it is doing these things just to make people go, oh, we gotta stop it. But then the flip side of that is that no one ever realizes that aspect. But it's, yeah. I mean, this game certainly wasn't the start of those kinds of problems. That I put more on the Cold Steel games, where so much effort got put into, like, until I experienced Cold Steel 3, I thought the Civil War was bad. I did. There was every implication that when we got to Cold Steel 3 and got a chance to finally explore Western Arabonia, we would see the damage and scars of that conflict. Right? Instead, we got things like, no, every city was fine. And the military just spent the whole war bunkered down in a fortress, not really getting, and no one got hurt there. A bunch of stuff like that. And the shelling of Ordine, when with the railway guns, where they didn't hurt anyone. They had hours to fire in the city, but all they did was take out one lighthouse. It's just a bunch of factors like that. I think someone's mentioned this even, that if left to their own devices, the head guy in charge of all this would have had no one get hurt from the Great Twilight. Like, the actual war itself would have been like, yeah, no one died. And it's only when someone pointed out how insane that concept was that he relented and decided to have a few people died. What I know about the Calvard games seems like I don't need every scene to be a bloodshed massacre. But I do need to feel like, even though we may stop the danger, there is actually a danger. And this game just worked so hard to undo that sense. And it was, at least for me, it's just something that didn't hit right. So those are some of my major thoughts about the game. I would love to hear what you thought about this game. Like I said, I wouldn't say this was the worst of the series. I think I'd say one of the Cold Steel games was. But it certainly wasn't. I mean, it was a game. I enjoyed it. But it wasn't the best, by far. Not the worst, but not the best. A very mid game for me. But yeah, no, share your thoughts. I would love to read them, to understand your thoughts about what you thought was great storytelling, if you have those differing opinions, or where you think I might have been on the money. Do you share my headcanon about Elysium ultimately being like trying not to actually hurt anyone and kind of killing itself off in a super elaborate way? Let me know what you think. Otherwise, I guess I will see everyone when I get into the Daybreak series in Calvard, which, from what I've heard, I gotta say I'm looking forward to it. Feels like they've made some changes, storytelling-wise, that I will appreciate and will solve some of my complaints, which I think is great. I'm really looking forward to that aspect of things. But yeah. Of course, if you're feeling generous, you can always follow me on Twitter. Throw me a buck on Patreon. It's not much, but I do do what I can to spend that money towards other games to play, and so that I can, because these take up a lot of time. I do what I can to find the time to do them. It does help. It's a little bit, but it helps. And it makes me feel appreciated. Well, yeah, we're going to call it there. I've rambled on long enough. Everyone, thanks for this journey with me, and have a great day.